And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for September 25th. Day 268 of 2021 sees 4 systems active, those being in no particular order: Tropical Depression 3B, Typhoon Mindulle, Hurricane Sam, and Subtropical Storm Teresa, bringing the total number of named storms so far this year to 74. Kicking things off with the Atlantic on day 117 of hurricane season brings us Sam, which is now a Category 1 hurricane, as well as newly formed subtropical storm Teresa, and an extratropical Odette is practically no more, as it has a 0% chance of reformation within 5 days. Finally, an area of interest which doesn't have an invest designation as of now is closely following behind Sam, currently with a 50% chance of formation within 5 days. Jumping over to the Eastern Pacific on day 133 of hurricane season sees practically nothing in this part of the world. No storms, no invests, no nothing. On the other side of the Pacific, however, the only thing active here is Typhoon Mindulle, which is now a minimal typhoon according to our analysis. Over in the North Indian Ocean, 3B is present in the Bay of Bengal. We currently have this system as a tropical depression. Jumping over to the satellite imagery, starting us off with the Atlantic, Hurricane Sam is making its way westward, looking quite photogenic on satellite personally. Subtropical Storm Teresa is struggling to pull itself together, and an extratropical Odette is barely visible on satellite. The East Pacific is devoid of any activity today, just general thunderstorms are present here in this part of the world. Mindulle is intensifying out in the open Western Pacific, is currently traveling northward as well, currently a minimal typhoon and intensifying. 3B is present in the Bay of Bengal today. It continues to persist just off the coast, currently traveling westwards towards India. Typhoon Mindulle is forecast to intensify as it moves northwards, becoming a super typhoon by Monday according to this cone that is on your screen now. Hurricane Sam is still intensifying in the open Atlantic. It is forecast to become a major hurricane as it curves northwestward. Hopefully this forecast follows through and Hurricane Sam barely misses the Lesser Antilles. Subtropical Storm Teresa is forecast to be a relatively short-lived system, as you can see by this cone. It is forecast to dissipate by Sunday. Jumping over to the sea surface temperatures, starting over with the West Pacific, remaining largely at 29 degrees with some pockets of 30 degrees. The Bay of Bengal is currently registering 28 degrees. Those temperatures are extending into the Arabian Sea. However, the further west you go in the Arabian Sea, the colder you will get. Tropical Atlantic has temperatures ranging around 28 to 29 Celsius. The trail left by Larry is still present, however it is not as prevalent as it once was. Jumping over to the tropical Eastern Pacific, remaining largely at 28. Those temperatures are also extending over into the Central Pacific as well. However, the subtropical Eastern Pacific currently is registering low to mid 20s. Sea surface temperature anomalies, starting this time with the Eastern Pacific. The area from Baja California all the way to Hawaii and past Hawaii still remains cooler than average. The Atlantic pretty much is all above, however there are some puddles of cooler than average temperatures left behind by Larry. The Western Pacific largely remains warmer than average. And finally, the North Indian is also above average, except for the Western Central Arabian Sea. Today's On This Day takes us all the way back to 2001, where our main feature tonight is Hurricane Juliet, which was peaking on this day in the Eastern Pacific as a Category 4 hurricane. Elsewhere in the East Pacific, Kiko was weakening and currently was a depression today, as well as 2C in the Central Pacific, which failed to become a tropical storm in the Central Pacific. Hurricane Hambarto was a Category 1 in the Atlantic today. Francisco was pretty much gone, although still traceable today. And Typhoon Lakima was in between the coasts of Luzon and Taiwan and traveling northwards, I believe. That brings us to the Atlantic storm names. Next up is Victor followed by Wanda, the final two names on this Atlantic storm names before we head over to auxiliaries. Over in the Eastern Pacific, it's Pamela followed by Rick. And over in the Central Pacific, hey, I just met you and this is crazy, so here's Hone's number, call me never. Jumping over to the Western Pacific on list 4, the next names are Lion Rock and Kompasu. Over in the North Indian is Gulab followed by Shaheen. We could be seeing the former of those very soon. Here's hoping that we don't. Jumping over to the Southern Hemisphere, starting off with the Australian region is Paddy followed by Ruby. First up in the Southwest Indian, when that season starts going, up first is Anna, followed by Batsirai. And finally, up next in the South Pacific is Cody, followed by Dovey. That's all from me for now. We'll see you for another Tropical Weather Bulletin tomorrow night.